that bump. We gotta let that bump. We gotta let that. We gotta let that bump. We gotta let that bump. We gotta let that bump. You gotta let that bump. You gotta let that bump. You gotta let that. You gotta let move in your hands and just rock it out. You know what I'm saying? Something that keeps you going.
Stop, look. Long story, and it may look like I don't know what I'm doing, but I do. Maybe not. This is great. Anyone want a hug? No hugs. Stop, look. Long story, and it may look like I don't know what I'm doing, but I do. Maybe not.
Joined by a rabble more of vile confederates, as they say by Shakespeare's terms, but these are some of the best friends you can have in your corner. I'm actually going to completely fade out the music and turn the show over now to Nick Kelly. Rev 3 dude, as you know him in my chat, but I am doing the backup recording. Nick is handling all the heavy lifting. Tonight is a very special stream. I'm excited to host it. It is the recording of the Geek Wolfpack podcast. So I think, Nick, why don't you go on ahead and take over the reins, let people know what the Geek Wolfpack podcast is and what we're doing here tonight.
Okay. And then the other two folks can get themselves off mute and introduce themselves also. But
absolutely.
Yep. I am, as always, your Papa Wolf, Nick Kelly, of the Geek Wolfpack podcast, which is a podcast that our little Geek Wolfpack does even pre-COVID, which is Mama Wolf, which is Dr. Stacia Kelly, my wife, and Thermal Wolf, who's with us here tonight, Brandon Kelly. And we're a pop culture podcast that talks about the things that we think we think.
And I take full responsibility for making this happen because...
read about it in Podcasting for Dummies.
4th edition coming next week. Okay.
Yeah, and this is a rather unique thing in that there are 3 of you who are avid gamers who all finished a game that left some serious emotional experiences, and so that was as soon as all 3 of you finished, I said we're getting together and I'm gonna ask you guys some questions about the game. So, Brandon, why don't you introduce yourself and then you can pass it to Steve.
Okay, I'm Brandon Kelly, also known as Thermal Wolf online. I spend most of my time playing video games or doing homework. And I usually finish a lot of games right around the time they come out, and I have a lot of chances to play a bunch of different games, so I give my thoughts on those on this podcast.
That's right.
Yeah. And Steve?
Hi, I'm Steve Saylor, commonly known as a blind gamer. I play with this knucklehead down here, T. Morris, every Thursday night. We play Destiny together, but I'm a accessibility advocate and consultant. I've worked with studios such as Ubisoft, EA, and what we're going to be talking about today, most recently Naughty Dog, for The Last of Us Part 2. And yeah.
Outstanding. All right. So I don't know how well this guy under me is going to come across on the audio of the podcast. Just it's because he's in a window underneath your window. He's not physically under you. Let's get that out of the way right now. But yeah, so again, all of you had a chance to experience this sort of dystopian future where there's a lot of warring factions and emotional turmoil. But enough about Election Day. Let's talk about The Last of Us Part 2.
The Geek Wolfpack podcast. We are your break from the everyday horrors of election.
Yes. All right. So first question's open to everybody. When did you complete it, and are you back to air quote normal yet?
My God. Shall I kick it off? I'll kick it off.
Okay.
So first off, everybody, for those listening on the Geek Wolfpack podcast, I'm T. Morris. I'm a longtime friend of the Kelly family. They know me as the Great Enabler. You may know me as Twitch Dad, T Monster, and or just plain T. And along with playing video games, I'm a writer of science fiction and fantasy. I write some with my wife. I write some solo, and I'm also the author of books like Podcasting for Dummies, Discord for Dummies, and Twitch for Dummies. On my stream, I have this thing called the Friday Fun Run. And the words fun and The Last of Us Part 2 usually aren't words that you use together, but I'm going to get to that a little later in this. But the thing is that I make my my Friday fun run something other than Destiny related gaming because people know me for playing Destiny, and I have been playing more or less every Friday since its release, The Last of Us Part 2 on my Friday mornings, and I can say that I'm the last of the three of them the three of us to finish it, because I finished it literally 4 days before this recording. So I finished it October 30th, 2020. That is when I finished the game.
At least it's fresh in your mind.
It is very fresh in my mind. Am I back to normal? Between finishing The Last of Us and this election, it's the word normal is going to be a relative term in my life for a long, long time. Okay.
You know what I like about that? What you just said?
What?
You didn't even mention the pandemic that's going on at the same time.
Yeah, you know what? And I'll tell you why.
It's a little bit more relevant.
And I'll tell you why. Because I started the original Last of Us when the pandemic arrived to the United States, and I said, God, I hope I'm not like tempting fate right now. But yeah, that's that. So since the beginning of COVID, I have been playing The Last of Us. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Let me, before the other two answer, let me just say this, because I think we forgot to say it up front. The game came out in June. It is November. There will be spoilers.
Yes.
And you don't want to be spoiled because you haven't played the game yet. And what these three chuckleheads say makes you really want to go play the game. Don't listen to the rest of this. Come back when you're done. There you go.
And throughout this podcast, you're going to hear me field some questions that I'm going to pass on to Nick in audio. So Nick, just we have a question concerning Steve that he can think about at the end and for open Q&A. One of them is how much of the game did you get to play while consulting with Naughty Dog? So if you can make a note of that, Nick, and just kind of table that for later, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So that's when I finished it. Who wants to take it next?
Steve can go.
Yeah.
So I can't remember the exact date, but I do know it was before like public release, so before June 19th, because I did receive a review copy of the game beforehand. So I think I finished it probably, I would say, because the review embargo for that game was of June 12th. I hadn't finished the game completely as of that point, but I definitely finished it in between the 12th and the 19th when it released. And am I back to normal? Define normal. To
be fair, Steve, the game had an effect on you at the very beginning, and that was what went viral. Let's be honest, okay?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I meant. It's like, well, okay, I don't think my life has been normal ever since. So
I'm going to ask you about that because that's coming up.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, that's basically it.
What about you, Brandon?
By the way,
I finished it.
By the way, Brandon, fly jacket.
Thank you. For any people wondering, this is the jacket, the raid jacket you got for completing the Garden of Salvation the first week it came out.
Ooh,
which I completely
nice.
cheated. I only did the boss fight, but you know what? That means I get one sleeve.
Exactly, a jacket's a jacket.
Yeah.
Get like
Okay.
one sock, the raid sock.
It's just the buckle of the belt. So I finished it the Sunday after it came out publicly, and I was definitely awestruck by the story because it was there were a few big new things that I hadn't seen before in their development and the whole what came of it, and I think it was definitely a turning point, especially in the accessibility stuff, because that menu could probably be looked at for over an hour and change your gameplay experience entirely. So thank you for that, Steve.
It wasn't all. It wasn't all just me.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It wasn't all just me.
But we're going to give you credit for it nonetheless.
But
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So I'm back to normal, but still.
Let me level set with everybody, which is just out of the three of you, who played the original game?
I
The original last.
I did.
Yeah.
I've watched a whole playthrough on it, but I never played it.
Okay.
Okay, so Steve, this is for you since you're the accessibility champion here. It's a two-part question. So how does this compare with the first game?
Ooh.
And what are the what are, if you had to kind of just pick a couple of the standout accessibility features in part 2, what would they be?
Oof. Well,
Wow.
in comparison to the first game, night and day. And not to say that the original was bad for accessibility, but it was to give context at the time when the game came out in 2013, accessibility wasn't a topic of conversation pretty much anywhere. So it was a time when basically the PlayStation 4 was just about to come out. So it was because it was originally released on the PlayStation 3. So it was something that they had a sort of stuff that was built in, like larger text and subtitles and stuff like that, but nothing really stand out as far as accessibility in that. But when you're talking about The Last of Us 2, the features that I really enjoyed and thought was amazing. I usually kind of like to give like at least my favorite 4. One of which is high contrast mode, where what it'll do is sort of kind of turn the world into a bit of a grayscale color, and then it'll turn your character and your ally into a shade of blue, enemies into a shade of red, and items and interactive things in the environment will turn a shade of yellow. And it's designed to be where you can know where things are at any given point. And actually, it was a holdover from Uncharted 4. It was a mode that you would unlock once you completed the game called Thief Mode, where it allowed you kind of to sneak around and take out enemies in certain combat scenarios. But essentially, all they did was just made everything grayscale, turned you, Nathan, as blue, your enemies in red. And a lot of people said, hey, this would be a really great accessibility feature. So Naughty Dog took that out of Uncharted 4 and put it into The Last of Us 2 and expanded it so that it was available for colorblind users, and added a few extra features onto that. Another feature I loved was the zoom feature. So it was the first game that I really kind of saw that fully utilized the touchpad in more ways than just specifically the zoom feature. But if you turn it on, if you double tap on the touchpad, it'll zoom in to anywhere on the screen, and depending on what sort of size magnification you set it at, it will like zoom into that point, and you can use your finger basically to slide around the touchpad, so you can slide around the screen and see what you need to see. And it would be helpful for times when, if you're looking off in the distance and you can't tell whether or not you're looking at a tree or a clicker. That definitely comes in handy, and also helps with being able to read text that might be a little bit too small. And then 2 other things are kind of more audio related that I really enjoy was audio cues. So if you turn that on, there is an audio glossary for every single button that you press on the controller. And there's also generally a sound effect for anything that you're kind of interacting with. So for instance, if you go up towards a rope, what it will do is it'll play the sound effect to let you know to be able to play to press the X button, or the cross button, whichever you call it, and then it will precede it with a sound of a rope, so that if you're completely blind, you can basically know that there is a rope nearby and you can be able to climb up it by pushing X. So there's an audio glossary that kind of does that for everything. And there's also audio cues for when you are about to sneak up on an enemy, when you're about to stealth kill an enemy, when you actually completely finish killing an enemy from a stealth kill. Also, when you're coming in and out of a cinematic. There's an amazing audio glossary. And then lastly, the text-to-speech functionality, where every single piece of text that's on screen is readable via a virtual narrator. And you can, and they actually put even in the special kind of language and vocabulary that The Last of Us likes to use. So it is read, like you can read it out, you don't have to read it out any text. You can basically just have it read to you, and that's amazing for blind players. And those are just some of the 60 plus accessibility options that are in this game.
That's huge. That's a lot, man.
So would you say? So would you say this is a groundbreaking game?
That's putting it mildly.
Okay, I mean, it sounds, and I'm not saying that. I'm not asking that as a softball. I mean that sincerely. It seems like this is less of groundbreaking, more of just innovation. And
this is let's I'll put it in this way. not only I say it is the most accessible game we've ever had, ever in the industry, but also we'll be talking about accessibility in the industry, like accessibility before The Last of Us and accessibility after The Last of Us. They leapfrogged the industry so far ahead that it is literally going to take years for other studios to try to catch up to where they are now.
And you were part of that. So let's just make that clear, everybody.
Yeah, a little bit.
You were
yeah.
part of that.
Yeah. Props, big props.
It's not just groundbreaking in terms of accessibility, even the AI and the way that the combat worked, where every enemy had a specified name, had a specified personality, and a patrol route that was known by the other enemies, was super crazy in terms of just enemy AI. Because killing a specific enemy and then hearing someone else shout Jessica or Emily or something,
Yeah.
and that, like, knowing they had their names, like Legion has worked towards that because every character has a name for Watch Dogs Legion, and every character is like a set NPC. But I think Last of Us was definitely a stepping stone in terms of that and the way that they incorporated it.
I have thoughts about that as well, but I'm not going to steal from Nick's thunder because I have a feeling it's going to be addressed. But that little aspect, I would like to build on later in the discussion, especially when it comes to the themes of this game and the reaction from the gaming community.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so this game set about 4 years after the original game, right? Which is pretty close to the development time in real time because it's about 6 years. So let's start at the beginning of the game. Think about how it opens. Are you okay with how these characters were introduced or reintroduced for those who you played the original?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was checking up on them, and I noticed that that there was some tension between Joel and Ellie, and I I think this is my biggest problem with The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. In The Last of Us, in the original Last of Us, I was like mentally putting my daughter in the place of Ellie, and that was really kind of, and not just Elle, but I mean Joel's original daughter at the opening of The Last of Us. I literally after the opening of The Last of Us, I thought to myself, what have I gotten myself into? And I think with The Last of Us Part 2, it was an even more emotional experience because Elle is very close to the age that Sunny is now, that my daughter is now. So when I saw the tensions there, I was like, okay, she's going through something as a teenager. No offense, Brandon. I totally understand it. I totally get it. You have good days with your teenagers. You have bad days with your teenagers. That's cool. I totally get that. And in a weird way, I was relieved that things were going in the direction that they went. But I said, well, that ain't gonna last long. So I felt eased back into the world, and I realized how much I had missed these characters. Elle, Joel, Tommy, all of them. It was like reuniting with people, and I loved that. F you, Naughty Dog.
Either the other two got an opinion, or we'll move on.
Yeah, I think in a way, what I liked about the opening of this was that Naughty Dog didn't try to create another jaw-breaking opening like they did in the original. I don't think that, like, if they tried, they would not have done it the original justice, I think. And because that opening to the game was probably the most emotional I've ever been in beginning of a game ever, and I was like, oh, this is the journey we're gonna go on. Fan-effing-tastic. All right, let's go. And so with this one, what I liked about it was that it set it up from the events of the end of the last game, and it kind of, in this sort of like in its sort of way of recapping the first game, where Joel is talking to Tommy, and basically tell him about what happened at the hospital. And I liked as well, they kind of recreated it. So in a way, it was kind of like we had like a bit of a remaster of the original. We got to see like all like the updated graphics of that scene in the hospital. And in the beginning or at the end of the last one, or the first, it was kind of decided for you what that ending was supposed to be. It was something that at the time was a little bit controversial for Naughty Dog to do, but because some people might have preferred to be able to make that choice themselves, and I wouldn't blame them specifically, but I would say nope, that is the story they wanted to tell, and I was okay with that choice. And what I liked about this is that it kind of now we get to see the aftermath of that choice, and that's what I was hoping that the game was going to do with the sequel. And I'm glad they kind of stuck with it and kind of explored that a little bit. And I thought it was definitely a good opening. And I don't know if you want to include up until the kind of the big crux of the first act as sort of the opening of the game. Then I guess you're going to get a kind of a pretty heart-wrenching kind of opening. But I don't know. I think it definitely did what it was set out to do.
Right.
Okay. We're definitely going to get there. So let me ask you some continuity questions real quick, because there's two that come to mind. So reading through it all, you have Seraphites, you have the WLF, you have Rattlers, you have Fireflies. You could probably answer this first. Were there too many subplots going on, or did they manage to keep it all cohesive in the writing?
The one that I would say I was the most disappointed in were the Rattlers. I felt like they were there because we needed another big bad, and I mean, and it was kind of telegraphed when she said, "Oh, that's some weird graffiti." I'm like, "Come on!" There were a couple of times where I felt like, Abby was a little too naive. I mean, there were some things that Abby did that made me go, "Come on, Abby's a little more with it than that." She would have seen that and gone, "That's an insignia. That's not graffiti." Because I remember thinking, "Wait, you think that's weird graffiti, Abby? Come on." I have played you. I know you would have known that was an insignia.
I kind of would disagree a little bit on that, because there's only two worlds that Abby knew: the hospital and the WLF.
Fair enough.
And I think that like the naivete of everything. She was with the Fireflies, but she wasn't like in the day-to-day like she was with the WLF. Like she was there. You could tell that she was going through some training in a little bit in the Fireflies, but she really didn't even go through training like full hardcore until she joined the WLF. So I get what you're talking about. I probably would have thought the same thing too, but I think she was she was probably just as sheltered as Ellie would have been.
I felt like the Rattlers were somewhat tacked on, but I also enjoyed I enjoyed the Rattlers they felt more honest than any of the other factions that you run into apart from the clickers. In that there's this one particular scene where this guy was this big burly dude was talking smack, and he was just all strutting and like yeah, I'm the alpha male here. And the moment that Ellie got a hold of the machine gun and took out his kneecaps, he's like, wait, I'll talk. I'm like, you know what? I appreciate your honesty, dude. I appreciate you. And you know what? I'm going to gift you a sub. Don't forget to mash that follow button. And hey, like and subscribe. I mean, it was just this brutal honesty of him swaggering around. And the moment he was in trouble, he was begging for his life. And he was willing to barter anything so that he could walk away from it. And but I think that while I understood the purpose of the Rattlers, at the same time I was like, we could have kept that as the Seraphites. We could have kept that as a faction of the Seraphites, if you will. But I didn't. It was the one thing I said. Okay, so we got somebody new to contend with. Okay, I was but now that I'm looking back on it, when you think about what happened with the Fireflies and what happened with all these different factions, there could have easily been a faction very similar to WLF, and the Fireflies that break off, and it's just a bunch of bikers going, "Hey, we're gonna take the full on Negan route," and I totally I understood it. I didn't quite like it, but I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's get to know the Rattlers for however long we have left in this game.
I'll agree with you in the regards of the Rattlers. I thought like I could definitely see where people would say like it's kind of tacked on it, and I was like, yeah, okay. I could see that they were trying to kind of build out a more like fleshed out world in that there are factions pretty much everywhere now.
Yeah.
And the Rattlers was just one that you had to contend with. And but I think probably, yeah, I would agree that it just seems like because you kind of rushed through that section in a way,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely kind of felt like a bit hollow than it should have been.
Yeah. Especially when you compare it to the things that we'd gone through, not just with the WLF, but also with the Seraphites and things like that.
Yeah, if it was like maybe like another like survival city kind of or like town or whatever, like Jackson would have been, I probably would have been like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like Santa Barbara was the town, like the town that people just sort of hold up in, and without necessarily calling it the Rattlers, but you know, I could see where people would think that.
Tiny.
Yeah.
Okay. So at one point you switch who you're playing, right? You have to play as a completely different protagonist. And was that something that you expected? And did it make you suddenly like take a step back and kind of lose the state of the game, so to speak?
I can't
Brandon,
wait to hear. I can't wait to hear what Brandon says about this. I've been itching to hear this from his perspective.
Yeah, so when that happens, it's right after a very intense moment. Like they find each other, the two main characters, and then it goes back to a flashback and pans down, and instead of being Ellie, it's Abby. And that's so crazy. That caught me so off guard. I was like, is this really the time for a flashback? And then it showed it was her. And I was like, this is what we're doing now? Okay. I think it was a crazy ballsy move on Naughty Dog's part to make you humanize with everyone that you had just killed and gone through to fight against, and seeing things from Abby's perspective, and it was wild.
What about you two?
I will say this, and this is kind of a bit of a behind the scenes of when I was consulting with them. I didn't know about the Switch. I didn't even get a chance to see or play as Abby at all. Because I love that Naughty Dog kind of even kept that a secret even from us consultants. I think probably a few of the consultants that were like a little bit later on in the development process probably got a chance to play the game fully. But for me, I didn't get get that. So when I got to that point in the game, at first I was like, I hated it because I was like, no, why? Okay, why are we doing this flashback now? Like seriously, why now? Why are we doing this? And then when I saw, like, when you see the end of that flashback and you realize what it actually was, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Okay, now I understand why Abby did what she did. Now let's go back to the theater. I want to go back to the theater. Let's finish it up, and then you continue on as Abby. I went back to hating it. I was like, come on! I just want to know what happened in the freaking theater. Come on, let's do this. And then you kind of play through pretty much the entire like the 3 days as Abby, and I slowly started to really love it again until the point where you do get to go back to the theater, and then I had a completely different perspective on that entire scene, and it definitely made its point. It's like, okay, yeah, all right, fine. There are two sides. Okay, I get it. You hooked me. Well done, Naughty Dog.
Yeah, well done, Naughty Dog. Well done, and F you, Naughty Dog. One of the things that we kind of glossed over is that we were kind of given almost a warning shot, if you will, that this was going to happen, because at one point we are playing Abby. But here's the difference, and this is where I really commend Naughty Dog, and this is where I I feel like this is what really pissed off a lot of gamers. When we first played Abby, we didn't know who she was. She was just some nameless, faceless character. And all we knew about her was that she was part of some renegade Firefly group, and they were apparently looking for Joel.
She was built like a house.
And she was built like a house.
Yeah.
A very sexy brick house. And and so you've got this, and so we don't know a thing about Abby. And so when the first big moment of the game happens, where you watch this nameless, faceless character slaughter, that's the only way you can describe it, slaughter one of the most beloved characters probably ever created in video gaming, you're just like, the hell, and you are driven. You are freaking driven to waste her. And you are through the entire game. Then Naughty Dog goes, all right, we know where we would know, and that's the beautiful thing. Naughty Dog's like, we've put you at this point. We have placed all the pieces. Now we're just gonna flip the Monopoly board and have you start all over again. And what I found the reason why it took me so damn long to finish this game was I kept pausing it and kept having these diatribes with my chat going, you see, this is what's brilliant. And I started looking at it from a writer's perspective. And meanwhile, the big Marvinsky kept saying, T, finish the effing game. And, this, if Pip were playing the game, it would already be done. And, but I had to talk about this because there were all these little dualities. As L, you would collect the cards. As Abby, you collected the coins. You collected the cards as L because it was something that was encouraged by Joel, because Joel kept finding the comic books for you. With Abby's case, it was the dad who collected coins, and now you're collecting coins because you're dad. There were all these dualities, and you suddenly began to realize, even if you tried to use Abby as a bullet sponge in combat situations, you were getting to know Abby. And I think that was something that pissed off gamers because they don't want to get to know the other side. They want to know where to shoot. They want to know the target, and they want to waste it. It's pretty, it's pretty cut and dry. But as you're looking in this world of white hats and black hats, you suddenly find there are all these shades of gray in the middle. And
I like to be able to describe it as that this game is very much you get to, like, revenge there are always two sides to a revenge story.
There's that old Confucius, I believe it's Confucius, that said, before going on a revenge quest, you must first dig 2 graves. And this is what the game was about. This is what this entire game was built around. And I remember Marv and I had a big, since I mentioned Marv earlier, Marv, who is a regular in my stream and is a great guy, he said, here, and it was the theater scene where the thing is, you're still playing Abby, now you're chasing L, and L is trying to kill you. And now you're seeing what you've been doing through the majority of the game from the other person's perspective. And you can't be a bullet sponge now, because if you want to move forward in the game, you've got to try to take out the character you've been playing. And I'm like, this is ballsy, this is brave, this is nuts, and I loved it.
Yep.
I
loved it too, because she uses all the same tricks that you would have used in that situation if you were Ellie.
Yeah.
And that's why I loved it. I was like, ooh, and sneaky Naughty Dog.
Sneaky Naughty Dog. And I'm gonna save it for the closer we get to next questions when we're talking about the end of it. But I will say that my attitude about going after Abby changed dramatically, because the thing was that even Abby had her own journey, and I think some gamers lost that. They don't want to know. But the thing is, we all have our own journeys, and the thing was, Abby was ready to you beat L, in that fight if you want to move forward in the game, and you have a chance to take her and her lover out, and Elle says, don't, she's pregnant, and Abby was ready to just to slit her throat, and it's Lev that says Abby, and it snaps her out of it, and she suddenly realizes, I've lost everything. Because of her actions, she loses her best friend Manny. She loses her ex. There's what happens at the aquarium. She has lost everything, and all she has left now is Lev. And Lev is like, "What are you doing?" So, was it consistent for Abby's character to say to Elle, "I'll never want to see you again," and she just leaves him there? Yeah, because Abby, it's in the title, The Last of Us. It's not about the survivors. It's about what's left in us as human beings at the end of something like this. And man, I like I said, I'm going to save it for my thoughts on Act 4 and how this is affected. But I found that to be a really ballsy move on Naughty Dog's part, and I applaud them for it, because it goes back to something that Tom Hiddleston was asked when they said, how do you feel about playing the villain? And he says, I'm not playing the villain. Loki doesn't think he's a villain. He thinks he's a hero. And that's what villains, in villains' own minds, they all think they're heroes. So yeah, well done, Naughty Dog. Well done.
So I have other questions on outside of the game, on reaction stuff that we will get to.
Right.
But let's stay in the game. And I'll ask all of you, who wants to talk about Joel?
Brandon, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I think Brandon should come in, because I want to hear Brandon's thoughts, because he didn't play Last of Us Part 1. So I really want to know what your thoughts were when getting to. Did you feel like you got to know Joel as much?
Yeah,
as
I still
Steve and
did, because I've watched the entirety of the first one played through a YouTuber, which isn't the same thing, but it's still the same story being told. It's just not through
right.
my
Your own, yeah, you're not
input.
controlling
Yeah. So I had known him at least as the father figure of the last game, but I knew going into the second one that he could not make it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been a satisfying ending. Because if Joel makes it out and everything is resolved, then it's not a Naughty Dog story. And something has to go wrong. There's like in the first Last of Us, there's no way that everything ends up perfect from the way that it began. And like there's so many plights that you have to go through, and then super big choices which aren't actually a choice because there's no way a fungal vaccine would have been made. I think it's I knew it had to come, and then definitely watching Ellie have to watch her father figure get killed in front of her after not giving Joel the chance of redeeming himself after the thing she was mad at him for at the very beginning and technically also the very end, definitely hit a lot harder than I think a lot of video game deaths would, because there's more like you don't know what you have until you lose it, that kind of mindset. And I don't think Ellie understood that she should have been more grateful, because she didn't know, like, the world they live in, she didn't know what could happen. So
It's the Han Solo in the Force Awakens, right? Like, why is he there if he's going to make it out? There's no have that character.
Exactly.
Yep.
For me, it was really hard. I admit, when Joel is buried, when you see the gravestone, I was like, oh my God, they're really doing this. I was completely floored by it, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. All I wanted to do was find Abby and get payback. I was ready. That was my objective. That was what I figured. This is my main point, is I'm gonna get justice for Joel. That's all I could think of, is getting justice for Joel. And it was a source of deep discussion on my stream when it was revealed later on that Joel had, obviously I knew when Joel said what he said at the end of The Last of Us Part 1, when he said, yeah, there was nothing that they could do, and she just said, okay. I said, that's going to come back to bite him in the ass, and it does. And I but I, being a father myself, I was siding with Joel. I'm like, I was going to say that Elle wasn't ready to make that kind of a decision for herself, and Joel over, his character's journey in the first one was about rediscovering his humanity through this girl that literally becomes his daughter, and even though she made it clear to him, I'm not your daughter, but you get that father figure on, and but yeah, I was sad to see him go, but I was also proud of Joel at the same time, because when he said to the moment that Abby says to him, or sorry, Freudian slip, when Elle says to Joel, that was my decision to make, and he says to her, if the Lord took me back to that time, I would do it all over again. I'm like, damn it, Joel, yes, because that's what you do as a dad. That's what you do as a dad. Because someone said, somebody in my chat had said, well, what if it was Sonny that had been in that situation? I would have said, you bet I would have torn through hell and high water to get her out of that hospital, and nothing would have stopped me. And even if she would have resented it from me later, I would have said the same thing that Joel said, which was, I'd do it all over again. And that's why Joel still remains. He remains a soft spot in my heart. That was rough to watch, and it was even rougher to see him in the flashbacks. Even rougher to watch him in the flashbacks.
For me, did you want me to tell the story? Or?
Yeah. Steve has a story that nobody else has.
Yeah,
this is
no
great.
kidding.
So, when I found out about Joel, I was consulting with Naughty Dog. I was at their studio, and I didn't know up until that point what had happened to Joel. I didn't see Joel. I knew that we were going to be playing the game as Ellie, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's what the sequel's going to be like, whatever. But I didn't see Joel. And then before I went to San Diego, Sony and Naughty Dog had released a trailer, a story trailer for The Last of Us 2. And there was one particular moment in the trailer where essentially Ellie kind of drops down in sort of like this suburban area, and she gets kind of grabbed from behind, hand over her mouth, and she breaks free, and she kind of sees who it was that held her, and she goes, what are you doing here? And then the camera switches to a shot of Joel, and he says, you think I will let you do this alone? And that's how they ended that trailer. So that's all anyone had ever known about the story of The Last of Us 2. So when I went to the studio and I was playing it, and I actually got to that particular scene in the trailer and did the same thing. The cinematic was exactly the same way. Someone grabs Ellie from behind. She breaks free. She says, what are you doing here? And then the camera cuts to Jesse and basically says the same thing. And I'm like, hold on. Wait a second. That's not Joel. And then I'm looking around, and I can now see a few like Naughty Dog developers basically standing in behind me, just kind of like smiling and nodding. And then it took me a second, and I was like, wait a second. Does that mean that Joel is the one that dies? And because in the trailer they kind of made it seem like there was a traumatic event. Mm-hmm. You're sort of led to believe it's supposed to be Dina. And I was like, wait, so that means you killed Joel? And then developers didn't even say anything. They just smiled and nodded. And I'm like, hold on. I was freaking out for a good solid 10, 15 minutes. At the point where I had to stop. I had to stop playing and set the controller down. I was like, no, I can't. I need to take a break. And I was pacing the studio, basically back and forth, just trying to get myself past that. And I'm like, I can't believe they did it. They actually did it. They're actually going to do it. And I was talking to a few of them, and they're like, yeah, there's definitely going to be a few people that are going to be upset. And I said, a few? Like, you realize what you did?
It's in the name of the developer, baby. It's Naughty Dog. It's not Nice Dog. It's Naughty Dog.
Yeah, and so I didn't like officially get to see that scene until actually when I got to play the final version of the game. Now the caveat, to top off that entire story, guess which scene they had me play next after I had figured out about Joel. Take a wild guess.
Well, I'm assuming they kept you moving forward in the timeline, so I could only assume that the next big scene would be, if you didn't play Abby, it had to be the one where was it the finale?
Nope.
I that's my
Brandon,
guess.
want to take a guess? Because I just wanted to hear actually your thoughts.
Something with Tommy?
Nope. The scene they had me play next, after I figured out that it was Joel that was going to die, was the effing museum scene.
Oh no! Oh no!
The most charming and heartbreaking that I could ever play.
One of the rare sweet moments in that game. The sweetest moment in that game. Oh my god.
Yep.
Oh,
that's the one.
That hurts.
That's the one. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And I think that's probably why I think that is like legit my favorite scene in the ententire game. It's not because scene. It's like, okay, really, Naughty Dog, you had to just like, you just keep stabbing my heart. But it was like, I was very emotional playing that entire scene, because I was loving every second of it. And in a way, I kind of almost wished that was the actual scene that you play next. I know it kind of came shortly after the event, the death, but it was such an amazing scene to kind of play, and I probably wouldn't I wouldn't trade that for anything, because that experience is unique to me, and probably to no one else in the entire world, and that means something special to me. But then, even when I jumping to when I got to play the game for the first time, like the final version, and I got to that scene, even though knowing exactly what was gonna happen, it still hit me like a ton of bricks.
It's a wonderfully put together scene. It's a wonderfully put together scene.
And I will say, I have to give the ultimate props to Ashley Johnson for the acting that she did in that scene as Ellie. Like, my God, I could hear her crying and yelling in the same tone of voice that I felt I was crying, I was yelling, I was feeling the exact same things that Ellie was, and I could tell that Ashley was feeling the exact same thing when she was acting that out and seeing like Joel there lying on the ground. Like, that to me, I wanted to rain vengeance upon everyone and everything that was in my way, and it really, like, that's one thing that I applaud this game for, is that it really puts you in the exact emotions that the actual character is in this game.
There's not one weak link in that cast, not one weak link. I mean, and props to the actor, and Steve, you probably know the name before I do, the actor who plays Joel.
Troy Baker.
Yeah, Troy Baker. I mean, we're talking when he looks in that museum scene, and this is the scene, chat, where just so you all know, there's a scene where as a present, Joel takes Ellie to a museum, and the museum has a mix of both dinosaurs. And oddly enough, and it kind of took me out, because I'm like, this is the weirdest organized museum ever. But I went with it because I'm a space nerd myself, and Ellie and I are both NASA nerds. And Joel basically nabs a recording of one of the NASA moon launches, and he, there's this lovely moment where you as Elle you pick the space helmet. You get into the capsule with Joel. Joel plays the tape for her. She imagines the whole thing. She looks over to Joel, and he just and this is the sign of a good actor. He had one line after that, and it was just, "How'd I do?" And the emotion in those 3 words just broke me. It's a great scene. It's a great scene.
Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think for me that the biggest moment of it was that when she was hearing the Apollo 11 launch, and to me that hit home because that's like my dad and I have a common one of the common things we common interests we have is we love anything to do with NASA and space, and the entire space race. And so to see that section of the museum and hearing that, I was like, man, that would have like if my dad and I were able to go to NASA like when I was a kid, this is pretty much exactly what my dad would have done. And that would have meant the world to me, as much as it meant to Ellie. And you can tell even as well because later on in the game, like you can see on Ellie's backpack the shuttle pin that she got from that museum. Yep. And to even the merch side of things, I actually have I don't have with me. I have to go find it, but I have the Ellie backpack, and it came with that pin.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I was like, oh, that's exactly like that. That is why that is my favorite scene, and it's probably the one that like will stick with me as probably like as just as big of a scene as like that was this was to The Last of Us 2 what the giraffe scene was in The Last of Us 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
So other deaths in the game, because there are some, right?
Yeah.
It's a handful that I
handful of deaths.
Yeah. Any of those kind of just like, whoa, where did that come from? Or was there like a huge reaction? Was there like a moment? And nothing's going to be like Joel, but was there a like, oh man, not that person?
The death of Manny threw me for a loop because he literally got caught in mid sentence. What a horrible way to die. It feels like all the other characters, they could see it coming, but with Manny, it was really particularly rough because you knew at that time, at that point in the game, you knew Manny was looking after his dad, and his dad had some sort of degenerative disease. I couldn't remember if it's Alzheimer's or dementia, or something, or Parkinson's, but something was going on with him. So Manny was taking care of his dad. And the minute Manny fell, the first thought that popped in my head was, who's going to take care of his dad? Which is something that you shouldn't be thinking about when you're picking off the bad guys one by one, right? Oh no, not with Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog's like, F you, I'm going to make you care about all these uppers.
I would say even in the duality of, as you had mentioned before, the exact same thing with Jesse.
Yeah, with Jesse.
Yeah,
same thing.
That one caught me way off guard because he runs out of the theater doors and just gets put down.
Yep, one shot. And then, but another death that really kind of impacted me and made me go, wow, Ellie's got a lot to deal with from a moral perspective, if you will, was when she kills, and the characters' names again are escaping me, but it's the two characters that were held up in the aquarium. It's her ex, who I thought was a douchebag to begin with. I'm sorry. I never felt pity for him. I was glad to see him buy it. The guy was a douchebag. I'm sorry. If you're trying to impress a girl by who who's afraid of heights by taking her up into a Ferris wheel and then rocking the Ferris wheel and then diving off of it, nah, you're not charming. You're not being charming. You're being a douchebag. But that guy and his girlfriend, who was pregnant, and you see Elle kill them both, and after she kills her, she looks at her, and that's when she realizes that the woman was pregnant. And Elle's like, "Oh, I've crossed a line here. I've crossed a major line here." Then you go back and play as Abby, and you see that relationship from an entirely different perspective. Because remember, Owen was the guy's name, but Owen
Mel was the
and
girl's
Mel.
name.
Thank you, Owen and Mel. You see the relationship of Owen and Mel from an entirely different perspective, including the fact that Owen pretty much gets it on pretty hot and heavy with Abby, while Mel is off doing something else, and you're just like, all these characters have got some issues, but at the same time, that particular death, when you see Mel again, I kind of nod and go, I know what's going to happen to her, and it's not pretty. And now I'm seeing all the dynamics around them, and I'm just like, this is really, and that was what I think makes the storytelling in Naughty Dog so superior. It is extremely complicated. It is extremely complicated, and you guys know how much I love playing really good, solid, story-driven games. Games like BioShock, games like the Tomb Raider series. They all are terrific stories, but The Last of Us completely raises that bar to an astounding level, and those deaths kind of threw me for a loop as well.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the game itself and the playing in the game itself, and I'll have some other questions around that. But last kind of story point is, how satisfied were you with the end of the story?
Brandon, you want to lead that?
I remember the fight at the end, but I don't remember if that's like roll credits or if there's something else after that.
There's one last thing where Elle goes back to the farm, and the farm is emptied out.
Oh,
Except
that's
for her
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
And the last thing you see is the guitar and I did it again, and Elle walking into the distance. You have no idea if she's going back to Jackson or if she's just going to be like Ronan and just wander the countryside or what.
Right. Yeah, it's very open-ended. I think the last fight between the two is very heavy.
Yep.
It's characteristic of both of them, like showing how Abby's grown, how like she denies any sort of fight until like Ellie pulls her to her feet and is like, "No, we're fighting."
Remember, Elle threatens Lev.
Threat Lev.
Yeah.
The same way that Abby threatened, again, the duality of it, the same way that Abby threatened her girlfriend, Nina, Dina, in the theater. Same way.
Yeah, I think it definitely shows that they've changed, and Ellie knows like she wants revenge, but it's just going to cause more and more pain, especially to Lev. So it's a very understandably heavy ending, and I think it's probably what I would have expected from it, other than like the very open-ended thing that of Ellie just walking off, because at least the last one had a more understandable, like there was a set direction.
Mm-hmm.
But this one can just be like, if they make a third and they want to tell the story of Ellie again, then there's like any direction she could take. So
I have never wanted to not take part in a boss fight than I did in this one.
yeah.
When I was going into this final boss fight in The Last of Us, where Abby is forced to face off with Elle, throughout the whole thing, you can actually watch the clip in my on my YouTube channel. You can see it. You can see it in that replay. I just go, no, it was very different. It was very different. Panic from the Poison Ivy fight. What someone in my chat, Panic, just mentioned was my reluctance of doing a boss fight. the frustration that the reason I didn't want to do I wanted to complete the boss fight in Batman Arkham Asylum. And even if I had completed it, I would have said that wasn't worth it. And I would have probably quit the game again anyway. That was something that was a boss fight that was just frustrating. The boss fight at the end of The Last of Us, just every fiber of my being was saying, I don't want to do this, because I was exhausted. I was exhausted mentally about this. There was no good that was going to come of whoever died. And I just didn't want to do it. I was like, but I was already screaming at Elle going, why are you going after her again? You got a good life. You're struggling with PTSD. I get that, but you have a good life. What is there to gain from this? And then comes the moment. I mean, there was a moment where, and this is the contention that some people have said, well, it wasn't true to her character. And I'm like, you're and what they said was, they said that a flash of Joel suddenly has Ellie going, oh yeah, killing is bad, I shouldn't do that. And I'm like, you're not seeing the bigger picture. And I totally disagree with that assumption. Because if you remember, yes, Ellie is killing Abby at one point, and then she flashes to Joel. But unlike what drove her to the fight to begin with, which was that final image of Joel lying there dead, the image that she flashes to Joel is where she said, I'm going to try to forgive you. And It was her extending the olive branch. And she was like, I had to work to forgive Joel. I've got to do the same thing with Abby. Otherwise, we're going to do this all over again.
Well, it's also part, and she'd be causing the same pain.
Yes.
That was forced upon her to live.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
that was the thing that
at a younger age.
Yeah, I know.
That was the thing that I had, that it took me a while to sort of gather my thoughts around the ending. And it kind of came down to essentially two conclusions. One is pretty much jumping on what you were saying, T, in that we never knew the full context of the last conversation Ellie had with Joel.
Right.
We never knew, like, the entire game, we kind of saw Ellie pissed off at Joel for the decision that he made. And for all we know, it was probably a very long time where they hadn't spoken. They hadn't done anything. We knew that even at the beginning, when Ellie goes out with Dina on patrol, that sort of made you believe that things were okay with Joel, because she mentions that she's gonna watch a movie with Joel that night. And so, like, there was something there. So, but at that point, we didn't know that she had found out. So it was clever storytelling on that part. But up until that final fight, we did not know that final conversation, and we had assumed that the final conversation, even up to the point, was that dance scene where Joel intervened on that bigot who was getting upset about Adina and Ellie. So you think that entire time it's based, like, she's on a revenge quest for Joel because of just who Joel meant to her,
right?
And it just sort of the same relationships that we've grown up with this game and with the first game. But when you finally see that last conversation, and that you said exactly, like, the fact that she says, I don't know if I could forgive you for what you did, but I would like to try.
Right. And
that basically put everything in perspective for me, and that's what sort of made me, like, realize what Ellie was going through, in the battle that was going on in her mind of what to do about Joel. And a lot of people sort of think, well, like, Ellie had it so good, why would you do such a thing? Why would you still continue going on this revenge quest? And it's not, and people have even said that's not what I would do. The problem with that specific argument is that we don't know what Ellie would have, we don't know what anybody would have done, because the problem with it is that they were born and raised in a post-apocalyptic world. You gotta remember, at the first game, until we meet, like, when we meet Ellie for the first time, 20 years have gone
passed.
by.
Right.
Have passed. So she was born in a post-apocalyptic world, and where survival was all they knew. And so to me, I basically say, like, we would never know what decisions we would make in that sense. And when it comes down to survival and family, that means, and the people you care about means more to them probably than they would for us, because that's all we got. That's like, we don't have the luxury of being able to go on the internet and meeting friends. The only people we can get to know are the people that are around us, and that as long as we can survive together, we'll make it out okay. So would I like some people will say that can be seen as lazy storytelling, but when you see it in that context, that decision about Ellie going off again to for Abby makes total sense.
I would honestly say the hill I would die on for this game is there's a lot of things happening in the storytelling. Is it lazy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, like I said, I can't stress it enough. I felt like at that particular moment in that final boss fight of The Last of Us, when I just didn't want to do it. But I knew that if I didn't do this, the game would not finish. And I found everything about it. I mean, I would have been more disappointed if she had gotten back to the farmhouse and Dina was still there. I would have been like, I would have not have bought that, because even Dina was saying the same thing. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I remember saying the same thing. I was in Dina's camp. I was like, yeah, Dina, what is she doing? What is that? But at the same time, you're absolutely right, Steve. And I think that goes back again to what I was saying earlier about it being all in the title, The Last of Us. It's not just the survivors of this apocalypse. It's also what shreds of humanity remain in us. And that's what this was a story about. This was a story about it was a revenge tale, but it was also a morality tale. It was a tale about what are the limits of your humanity, and when do you reach that stopping point? When do you become as bad as the monsters that you're fighting? And that was something that I applauded for. But man, if you were to ask me, was I satisfied with the ending? Very much so. It was true to characters. It was true to character. It was true to form, and just some of the tightest storytelling I've ever seen. I can only wish to be at that level of a writer, and I now have a new bar to reach.
Okay, so everybody exhale. We're going to talk about the gameplay as opposed to the game story. So everybody, we're through it, I think. I have a handful of questions, and I have a couple that T had from chat, and then we'll finish with reaction stuff, and then I will warn you that there is a lightning round at the end, because that's my new jam.
Yeah,
cool.
So first thing is the amount of customization that you can do in terms of gameplay. Does anybody have other than the accessibility stuff, because we hit that earlier on, but anybody have an opinion on that? Probably.
You guys go ahead. I mentioned customization already.
I played this game in the out of box mode. I didn't want to try to modify it. I didn't want to make it any harder. I didn't want to make it any easier. I just want to be like, okay, this is the standard version. The Naughty Dog says this is the baseline, and from here we can build. You can go from here to there. What I was more impressed with was after you finish the game, you unlock some absolutely ridiculous modifications because I remember saying at the end of it, I said, I will probably never play The Last of Us 2 again because I don't think I can handle it. Then I saw all the ridiculous mods that I unlocked, and I said, okay, I could see me doing this for funsies. Like they have everything from, you can play it in the mode of a comic book where everything looks like a graphic novel. You can actually add in Matrix bullet time effects. You can make it to where you have unlimited where you have unlimited resources, unlimited ammo, and then. But the one I thought was the most ridiculous was Touch of Death, where one melee punch will take out anything, and I was like, okay, but
Yep.
but I
There's even a mode in there. I don't know if TV saw it, but it's called Grounded, where if you play the game on Grounded difficulty, you have one life. If you die, you go right back to the beginning of the game.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yep.
oh yeah, yeah. I've seen that one. Yep. But I didn't take advantage of any of those mods. I didn't.
Well, you can't until it's over, right?
Right. Well, yeah. Well, there are
Right.
some
Yeah.
there are some that you can't until you're done, and of course they also have the new game plus, which is where I could play the original game again, but with all the stuff that I got the beginning with, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's what a lot of games have done and
Yeah.
need to do if they haven't.
and I'm like,
Yep.
oh, okay, so that means I can start the game with a flamethrower. I'm in.
So
Pretty much.
thinking about, I think that probably the gaming wise, the closest experience I have to something like this was Detroit Become Human, right? And thinking about what that game was like, it seemed like there were as many cinematics as there was gameplay. And do you feel there's a good enough balance in this game? And also, you mentioned like the decision gets made at the end of the original game. Do you feel like you had enough choice, or do you feel like you were sort of slave because the story had to go one way or another?
I think the game definitely makes its choices for you. I don't think that there was really any sort of decision that the player gets to make. You're playing as Ellie or as Abby, and the game will pretty much just give you a little bit of freedom to kind of to complete the task or the story as you wanted to. But in reality, like the story beats pretty much are exactly the same. I don't think I think there was actually a pretty good balance of cinematics and gameplay. There were a few definitely like some longer scenes and stuff like that, but I don't think that they were. I don't think let's say I wasn't sitting there bored and just waiting for the like I was like, oh man, can we just get back to the game, please?
Skip cinematics.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't think I ever felt that in any way, shape, or form. And even in the kind of side conversations you have with some of the characters, I never felt I wanted to skip any of that just to kind of move on. So for me, no, I think it struck a pretty good balance throughout the whole thing.
There were a couple of cinematics I replayed, especially when Steve told me that one of the voice actors was actually a James Bond and Westworld alumni.
Yep.
He's the guy that plays the guy that played Bernard in Westworld, and Felix Leiter in the Craig Bond films. Voices Isaac, the head of the WLF, and his cinematic was so damn good. I was like, oh, Chad, I gotta watch that again. And it's a brutal one too, because it's one where the door opens and you see Isaac backlit, or actually he's front lit, but his profile is being broken up by the shadow of a guy who is backlit, but you can tell that he is naked, and he is connected to a car battery, and that's all you know. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so we're doing this. And I mean, just I did. I felt like I would lose myself just as deeply into the cinematics as I did into the gameplay. And I felt that I never felt like it was gameplay cinematic game. I felt like they were intertwined very, very nicely into it. What about you, B?
I think the PlayStation exclusives always do a great job at that. I think it's basically the perfect balance, and it's definitely done really well with the first one and the second one. I can't complain at all because it's not a video game. It's a movie that you can play.
I gotta say this though. The Order 1886 was also a PlayStation exclusive, so not everyone's a coconut, as Pip would say.
True. Yeah.
You're talking about Jeffrey Wright.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Wright. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, he's so good.
I know.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the two that you had from chat, and then we're going to get into some of the just no, we're going to pull back and just take a look. So the first was, Steve, how much did you get to play while you were consulting with Naughty Dog? And it sounded like you answered some of that already.
Yeah, I'll say without kind of Well, yeah. I think I could talk about this. The out of the sections that I got to play, probably the most are pretty much all of Seattle Day One. With the basically the kind of the open world aspect of Seattle, and then pretty much the majority of Hillcrest, which is basically the suburban area, and a few of kind of the sort of the flashback scenes, including the museum scene. So that's probably the time I spent the most on for that, because pretty much within those sections, you pretty much get the majority of what the gameplay is like all the you pretty much hit all the gameplay elements for that.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
Okay. T, when did The Last of Us Part 2 stop being a game and become an experience instead?
So yeah, this is something I definitely wanted to talk about. All the way through The Last of Us up to this particular point, this particular scene, I was getting my stealth on, I was getting my aim on, my archery skills way better than anything in Lara Croft or in Destiny. I was really happy with my progression. But where I felt like the game took a turn from me was the scene. I believe the character's name is Naomi, and it is it's a character that I am chasing because she has information on where to find Abby. I believe she's the one that tells me that it's the aquarium where she's at. But it's a scene where you drop down into one of the lower sections, and I believe there is a brand new baddie that you meet. It's like the next evolution of the bloater, where it spits out acid, and it's all done in red light. And what happens is that Naomi's mask gets damaged, so she's breathing in the spores, and she's not looking so hot, and Elle just emerges out of there, and she's got is I believe a crowbar or a pipe, and you go up to her, you basically get the information, and you basically say, I can either make this quick or I can draw it out, but Naomi tells you everything you need to know, and then Elle is standing over her, and you're given the prompt to press the square key. That's how much this moment traumatized me. You press the square key, and she wails, and then she stops, and then you get the prompt again. And as you're sitting there going, do I press this again? You can hear Naomi gasping for breath. And every time you swing that, Ellie's face contorts, and it gets angrier and angrier. And you're constantly given the prompt, and and each time you get the prompt, Naomi off camera, and that's all you hear is her off camera is sounding worse and worse. And that's when I was like, okay, this doesn't feel like a game anymore. This just feels like a test of like how many swings can I get in, or how many swings am I? At first I thought, okay, is this a timed thing? And I sat there, and all I heard I just heard her sputtering. And I swung again. And I'm like, okay, is it based on how many times I hit her? I was asking all these questions. Meanwhile, I'm watching this scene unfold before me, and I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. That's the only way I could describe it. It just didn't feel right. And that was when the game at that point stopped being a game, and it became more of an experience. More of just this experience of emotion. I mean, I can even see it in my own streams. I had to literally take a half an hour to an hour just chatting with chat and having my cup of coffee and relaxing, just so that I could mentally psych myself up, wind myself up, so I could go into The Last of Us. I admit I was stalling, because after that moment, the deeper I got into the game, the harder, and I don't mean by a skill, I'm talking about from an emotional level, it got to play. Both on a positive and a negative side, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's that's why I don't think it's a video game. I really do think it's a completely visceral experience, and I loved it. I loved it.
All right, so Brenda, I'm going to need some clown car music if you want to compose me something. Because the next couple questions are on the internet being the internet.
Oh dear God.
Oh boy.
Oh dear God.
Oh boy. Okay.
Oh wait. There was one more question that we did get from chat. It's specifically for Steve. It's from Successful Geek, aka Adam. Why is Steve so awesome? Brandon, would you like to take that one? I think you should kick us off with that. Why is Steve so awesome?
Steve's got a smile that could light up a room and a voice that could amplify that.
Amen.
Just the positive attitude he brings to every situation is so enjoyable. He's so Canadian.
For me, it's his childlike wonder, which you hear when he was playing Among Us.
Oh God!
And
I'm so sorry.
I went back and I went back and I've isolated some of the clips, and man, the clips of Steve basically, literally, just snow blinding everyone. With his like, look, I was in there and I was doing this and I was doing this and I was dead because this bastard killed me. And I'm like,
I didn't kill you. It was Phoenix.
But I was going, listen to him, chat. Listen to him. He is one of them. And and yet he was playing this wide-eyed innocent, and so many people were buying into it until the second go round. I'm like, nah, he's toast this time. He's toast. But yeah, it's that childlike wonder. It's that childlike wonder. All right, Nick. All right, let's go on ahead. Let's cue the clown car music, and let's hear the internet stuff.
Okay, so one of the big, and by big I mean the internet, being the internet, controversy in the game was that they included Lev, who was the transgender character. So, did you have an opinion of the character being included in the game? Did it impact your experience in any way, shape, or form?
Okay. I only had one hang up with Lev. Only one. And it was the way Abby so quickly went with Lev being Lev as being a he. I maybe it's just my impression of militia groups, most of them leaning towards the conservative side of things as opposed to a more liberal side of things. But I wasn't sure if Abby would be that hip to it, if that would make sense. Like, I would feel like that Abby would be struggling to remember, oh wait, Lev is identifying as male, not female. And that might have been a personal hang up to me. But I just felt that was a weird thing that Abby was so woke about that sort of thing. And you know, again, that was the only thing that bugged me. As far as Lev being transgender, I felt it perfect as far as a plot device in the fact that Lev was part of a cult, was part of a religious cult. That I found fascinating. I found it fascinating how I found that Lev's entire arc, what we were given of it, was very organic. It never felt contrived. It never felt forced. It never felt any of that. I applaud Naughty Dog for doing it, because again, it was it just seemed to fit seamlessly into the story. It really did, for me anyway. Brandon?
So I kind of disagree with the point you're making, because from the very beginning I was just like, I didn't even realize that Lev wasn't cis. I thought he was just a brother, like naturally born male, and that could just be me being naive and not being able to tell. But I think it's also, there's no political correctness in a post-apocalyptic world.
True.
That there's also no like open internet and no source to tell you that you're wrong or teach you in different ways that like what that is.
There's no Fox
so
News.
I think I think it's the way they've been taught, and I think with Abby's upbringing and the way her father was like teaching her, it was just a matter of she didn't prioritize caring about how someone identified. It was about keeping them alive.
Right.
Because it's very much the Seraphites being old-timey, very religious, very like stick to what you're meant to be, against Abby rebelling against everything she's ever known, trying to keep this kid that she met alive. She didn't care like what was going on. She just knew that the kid was a target for the Seraphites and needed to keep that kid alive because he was valuable to her. So
Yeah, go ahead, Steve, if you have an
Oh,
opinion.
I was, yeah, I didn't have a problem with Lev being transgender. I think at first I was like, oh, that's definitely a pretty cool and interesting choice for a character like that in The Last of Us, and was interested to kind of see further, and then I did hear a little bit of not necessarily yes, I did hear the controversy of people just not being like people were being upset, like, why is there a trans character in this game? But then I also did see, even from the trans community, that there was a bit of an issue taken with and I don't know 100% sort of the specific nuances of it, but I do know a tiny bit, just at least of that conversation, in regards to the fact that in the game, Lev is what they call dead named, which there's one point where the Seraphites kind of very angrily call Lev by Lev's original birth name,
Lily,
and
right.
that is something that is not it's not good, and it basically kind of like it kind of forces a confrontation that there doesn't need to be, and it's. And I definitely like the fact that sort of Abby just kind of like when she was asked by Lev, it's like, did you hear what they called me? And Abby was like, no, yeah, I did, but I figured you'd tell me or whatever. And it didn't matter to Abby, which was great. So I don't think it was sort of a necessarily that they, like, Naughty Dog, like, really misrepresented what a trans person would be like, or the LGBTQ community in that way. But it is something that is an issue, and I would definitely encourage those who are listening / watching to do a bit of research on it, and just so you can kind of understand sort of the why the LGBTQ community did have some thoughts on that particular character.
But I would return by that, but on that same coin, by saying, well, hang on a second. That's exactly the way the Seraphites would have reacted, because they did not agree. And you know, if you want context for that, look at probably one of the best series that ever incorporated gay and LGBTQ I plus characters, Sense8. Because if you remember, one of the main characters is a transgender female, but her mother, who did not agree with that, kept calling her Michael. And even when her lover was saying that's not her name, she said, you stay out of this. That's his name. It's been that way since birth. And that's the same thing that Naughty Dog did with the Seraphites. So I'm kind of surprised that would be part of the controversy, because
a lot of basically the was like, it didn't matter like how dark and grim in the context of it was. It was something that could have been avoided. That was kind of the where at least that community had sort of taken it.
I just think the Seraphites would be fighting Lev and their identity tooth and nail. They would.
Sure, I agree completely with that. I have that situation at work where we have someone who has is now female, and there are people with sticks up their butts who refuse to use she and her as pronouns, and there are a couple of us who have enough job security that we'll call them out if they.
Yeah.
I think
it also as well as like we are, and I don't want to presume for any of you, we are for straight white males. So having this kind of conversation is something that that we are definitely not educated in sort of answering fully. And that's why I always encourage you to do some research if you can.
Absolutely, but
yeah, I agree too. But I think having the Seraphite's dead name Lev even shows that like one, they're terrible people. Yes, that's been known, but
The generational ignorance is what it is.
Yeah.
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 But it's also a matter of showing that that kind of action is associated with people, at least to Lev in that scenario, is associated with people who are terrible in their eyes, because that's the one reason for this this choice that's massive to a bunch of people nowadays, and then something that would get Lev rejected from his society. It's
Right.
it shows that like there it's it's a metaphor or symbolism kind of thing in there, definitely, as like the people who do that kind of stuff are definitely not meant to be seen as good people in that
Right.
story.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's
they're basically, the Seraphites are like if the Amish took a really hard left turn.
If this
For context,
yeah.
for context, if it helps, researching this, there were also a lot of polarizing responses because Dina is Jewish. So the internet is the internet.
Oh my
I
god!
didn't even know
Are you
that.
friggin'
Yeah.
kidding me?
No.
Oh,
So
for
okay,
Pete's.
with that,
God
with that
damn
in
it, internet, grow up!
with that in mind, here's my next topic. I only have two more, and then we're
boy.
doing my.
All right.
The first is this isn't the first game to have it happen, but this game definitely got review bombed. So, what's your take on that approach as a way to voice your displeasure about a game?
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
yeah. And by the way, chat, if any of you in chat have questions about The Last of Us or about, oh, would you stop, Drafty? That's a terrible thing to say. But for those of you in chat, if you all have any additional questions about The Last of Us or about our experience with The Last of Us Part 2, by all means, feel free to drop them into chat now. We will gladly take them. But as far as the review bomb aspect of it, that's just butthurt gamer boys being butthurt gamer boys. And I really believe that part of the reason why this game in particular, I remember when I was talking to somebody in my chat about how I disagreed of the of the ending not being true to Elle's character. I also feel that there's that issue of people are saying, I waited 7 years. I waited 7 years for this game, and I was not happy with the way it was. I mean, that's just gamer privilege at its finest. Naughty Dog took 7 years to give us an exceptional video game, And the other thing about this game that I think that should be noted is that it's one of the things that makes it exceptional is that it is not a looter shooter. You are not going back to what was said earlier. When you would kill somebody, whether it was a WLF or whether it was a Seraphite, you'd hear someone go, Janice, Mel, Jack. Suddenly, these nameless, faceless targets, which you never heard, not even with the Fedra folks in the original Last of Us, you never heard their names. You never heard somebody say, Bobby's down. I repeat, Bobby is down. You just down the guy. You moved on to the next target, moved on to the next target, moved on to the next target. Here, this version of The Last of Us really did make you connect with people that you once regarded as targets. And now suddenly they're individuals. And it and especially with Abby. I mean, one of the other reasons why I did not want to have the fight with Abby is that at the very end was that Elle looks up to Abby in the was it the Pillars, I believe it was called, and Abby looks like she is like 20 pounds lighter, and she looks and you are rescuing her just so that you can kill her. And I think even Elle at one point realizes that, but then she has the flashback to when she last saw Joel alive, and that's where she's like, we're not done yet. And I'm just like, oh. But she had to actually stoop to be like Abby and become the quote-unquote monster that she always thought Abby was, and threaten Lev the same way that Abby had threatened Dina. And there were all these, and I remember I was having this discussion once with Brandon, and Brandon's like, T, you're not the average gamer. You're not the average gamer, T. And I'm like, maybe you're right, but but that was the thing, and I think that was what the review bombs were really driven about, was that this game really dove into your morality, and it's suddenly, and that's why it's more than a game; it's an experience, and I loved it. I loved it, but man, there were some points where it was hard. Not from a difficulty, just emotionally hard to play this game. I rank up playing The Last of Us on the same levels when I went to go see Schindler's List, and I was a mess after Schindler's List. But that's where I think this is coming from. I don't think the average gamer and game reviewer wants a game that makes them think about hard stuff. They just want to get their iron galley and move on.
No, you're right. A lot of gamers just try and get through the games for the experience and stuff to say that they have.
Right.
But I think also a lot of the closed-minded gamers just don't want change. They want everything to be the same thing since it was in 2005, 2010, to be the same streamlined stories, the same overall things, and I think it's not going to work. There's no way that that's going to be capable in any capacity. The times are changing, and you're going to have to deal with that.
I want all of them in a forum. Everybody you're talking about right now to be in a forum when they cast a black James Bond. That's what
and that James Bond is going to be Idris mother effing Elba. Yeah. I want my Idris Elba 007. I want that more than life itself. Make that happen.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with both you guys. I think and Metacritic actually had basically, I can't remember if they had already instituted this policy. I think they did, but essentially they added it where the user vote or the user score doesn't get applied until after the game is out. Because that was the problem with sort of the review bombing, was that once the reviews went live on the week before the game came out, that's when basically the user submissions were allowed, and a lot of just upset, angry gamers, especially because there was a leak of a lot of the cinematics in a couple months prior, and one of which was the death of Joel, and it was the sex scene between Abby and Owen, and there's a few others that basically just everyone got so butthurt about and hated it, and the gamer dude bros basically came out in full force, and honestly, I even personally saw it, tried to ruin the careers of several people at Naughty Dog, including the director. Neil Druckmann got a huge brunt of it, and what really pissed me off the most, what absolutely I was ready to go on a rampage across the internet, Jay and Silent Bob style. I was ready to go to bat for Laura Bailey. Laura Bailey got not only the worst of it. She was the one for the context. She was the one who plays Abby. Mm-hmm. She got the worst of it out of every single person, and she was getting not only just nasty comments about her and her performance, but also death threats towards her and her family and her and her toddler. She was getting DMs from people basically saying that they were gonna kill her kid, and I was so mad about that, and that's when I was like, it's not that moment that I knew that had to stop. I knew it from way before then, but it really just shows that that we need to get rid of these people ASAP in this industry.
Everybody's braver behind the keyboard.
The four of us, and I'm assuming a lot of people who listen to this and are in T's chat, we play games for fun. We enjoy it. We enjoy even having these discussions about the game and what we love about it, and the discourse we can have around it. But when it comes to making fun of or picking on or trolling people and basically saying very extremely hurtful and bullying comments towards the people who make the game, that's like the ultimately a bridge too far, regardless of what you feel about the game. If you didn't like the game, if you hated the game, if you thought it was absolutely like absolute dog shit, that's your opinion and that's fine,
and you're wrong. But that's beside the point.
You're wrong, but it's fine. But when you start going after the developers for basically like saying you ruined my childhood or you ruined my favorite game of all time, or sending death threats to them, and like I got caught up in a little bit of it with just seeing like having a few of those trolls kind of come after me, and I could only imagine what like all the like stuff privately that some of the kind of the more public people at Naughty Dog are getting. And
I really think this goes back to the way Naughty Dog and The Last of Us Part 2 challenged us, not just as gamers, but as individuals, as human beings, as about things like, and when you look at when you compare the storytelling of The Last of Us Part 1 was not bad. It was just as brilliant. It was also very groundbreaking in that it was a much. I remember when we met Kaz Anvar at Escape Velocity, and Kaz Anvar said, we were talking about video games back and forth. He was talking about Assassin's Creed. I was talking about, but I remember he said, well, you need to play The Last of Us. You need to play The Last of Us. It's like playing a movie. And the storytelling of The Last of Us Part 1 was, it wasn't as complicated. It was a much more linear style game. The Last of Us Part 2 was way more complicated from a storytelling perspective, and I don't think the butthurt gamer dude bros were ready for that, because they don't want that kind of challenge. They're like, no. I play video games so I can get the big gun, I can get the BFG, I can, look, if you want that, great. Play Doom Eternal. There's nothing wrong with that. You play Doom Eternal for that sort of thing. But if you want what the three of us went through, I think then if you want something a little more mature, let's just go out and say it, mature for video game and storytelling in video games, this is the game you want to play. This isn't going to be an easy in and out sort of game. This is a game that is going to, like Nick said at the very beginning of this podcast, how long did it take for you to get back to a sense of normalcy? And I was stupid enough to finish this game 4 days before a freaking election that could basically decide the direction of democracy. So yeah, maybe my timing was a little off on that. But
I have one more point.
Okay.
So, to the idiots that are, complaining just because they don't like the story and the way that everything came out, you're not contributing. It's not your story to tell.
Exactly.
You are not one of the people that works at Naughty Dog. You are not one of the people who gets a say in the story. It's their story. Every game that has ever come out is the developer's story to tell. Mm-hmm. And until you get off your ass, make your own game and write your own story and do anything to that regard, then you do not get the chance to complain.
Yep.
And being, look, and as my own stream found out, I was actually doing subs only near the end, because I was hearing stories that people were actually trolling the Last of Us directory and spoiling, throwing out random spoilers to people, just so that they could so they could go out and they could say, hey, look what I did. I'm like, look, if you don't like a game, then instead of being that guy, here's a thought: don't ever buy another game from Naughty Dog.
Yep.
If Naughty Dog says, yeah.
It's the same idiots that go onto the Twitter page of Destiny, Apex, any game, and just do dead game every time they tweet.
Dead game.
That's nowhere near the same department, nowhere near the same anything. And just doing that isn't going to make them stop development. The game's always going to be there. If you don't like it, then
Oh
don't
no,
play it.
it's not gonna stop them at all, because the ones that went after Steve, man, did Naughty Dog circle them damn wagons around Steve, because they were like, yeah, come at me, bro, and I'm like, whoa, okay. Naughty Dog just became my favorite developer of all time.
I mean,
Yeah, I was happy about that.
you're that guy, bitch all you want, but Part 2 sold 4 million copies in its opening weekend. So
yeah.
your efforts are really stemming the tide in your favor, right? All right, we're gonna go lightning round. I'm gonna give one question. One question to each of you twice. So it'll be 6 total questions. But this is lightning round, so you gotta answer quick.
Okay.
Brent, I'm gonna go to you first.
Okay.
All right. Giraffe scenes. Your thoughts?
I never played the first one, but watching that reveal in the first one was amazing, because it somehow told so many stories with no actual, with very little words. It somehow it showed that how quickly nature would take over if we just stopped. And I think Steve was right that the museum scene is the same exact thing in the second one, of a complete connection between the player and the game that you just understand, instead of having to have it told to you or shown to you. It's just you see it and it's understood.
Nice. All right, Steve. Since you have both the Xbox, the new one, and the PS5, any accessibility features in either of those that just kind of immediately leap out at you?
No comment. I can't say anything until after embargo.
Okay. All right. Well, that's how you play lightning round, Steve.
No, but here's the thing. Because the reason why, here's how strict the security is from Sony. I am not allowed to take this PS5 out of my room.
Oh.
Didn't matter if I
They've got
live
a
alone.
sniper on a
It's just
parallel rooftop, just staring at your
they
apartment
literally say you
window.
have to secure it in it. They say you have to secure it in a room, and it's not allowed to leave it.
He's taking it to the bedroom. I have a clear shot. Do I have permission to take the shot?
That's how strict this embargo is. So that's why I'm like, I can't say anything.
I do want to say one thing though. When the embargo is lifted, I want you, Steve, to do the same thing that Nathan Fillion did. There's a picture of Nathan Fillion. It went viral. It's Nathan Fillion. You can tell he is shirtless. He is in bed and he's holding his PS4, and it says, "Yo, PS4, last night was dope." I want you to do that for the PS5.
Because
We'll see.
design, they give you the actual console and then the matching controller and then the matching house alert anklet. So it's nice.
I will say though, in regards to this conversation, keep an eye out when on my YouTube channel. There will be something. There will be something there.
Okay,
fair enough.
That's all I'll say.
Okay, T, your thoughts on the upcoming HBO TV show based on The Last of Us?
Well, first off, the actor that they cast as Joel is, and his name is escaping me, but he's the same actor who played Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones. I'm down for that. I think he would be perfect as Joel. Yeah, Panic. The HBO is going to be doing it as a series. I also hope that they get the same conductor, the guy who did the music for The Last of Us, because it turns out that the guy who did the score for that, he also did the score for Brokeback Mountain. So the guy knows how to do emotionally charged music, and I personally think that if they because I don't think the Tomb Raider movie, the last Tomb Raider movie made with I'm blanking. Yeah, thank you, Alicia Vikander. I really don't think it got enough love, because it was very true to the game and it was a lot of fun to watch, and I had a good time with it. I had a real good time with it.
It's because a lot of video game movies flop right away.
Exactly. But the recent Tomb Raider I thought was hella fun. And as far as The Last of Us as a series, I think that is perfect, because I don't think you could do The Last of Us justice as a 2.5 hour movie. But if you're doing it as a series, you've got the time to really expand on it, and I think it's going to be a blast.
Okay, Brandon, last question for you.
Okay.
You're in charge of the sequel. What do you put in it?
Like Last of Us 3?
Yes.
You cannot do that to me. That's not a lightning round question.
You know what?
Uh,
I'll just interrupt and say real quick. I'd be happy if there wasn't a Last of Us 3.
Yeah, no,
Because
I agree.
This is going to be a hard game to top.
Make it remaster the multiplayer engine, put it back in, just give us that, do what Titanfall 1 did. And
There
then
is a multiplayer coming supposedly,
Yeah.
but they just haven't announced when or how that's going
fine.
to come
Yeah,
out yet.
and then keep the accessibility settings, and then that's
Yes, please.
maybe add more, and then that'd be my answer.
Okay. Steve, last one for you.
Mhm.
Skybridge. Your thoughts?
Dear God. Oh, dear God.
That was scary, and I loved it. It was amazing, like character growth, and I loved it. I loved it.
Cool. Okay, T, last question is yours. Rat King, your thoughts?
Now that's not fair because these two were actually present for that entire Rat King moment. I actually have it in a clip. There's a clip where I'm like, okay, something's coming, and then it just burst into the ambulance, and I went, "Da hell, hell, chat, da hell." And in the words of Don't Panic, T's screams were amazing. I mean, they weren't Phasmophobia level of amazing, but they were real close. Yeah, that Rat King fight was utterly ridiculous in every possible way that was good. I mean, I'm trying to think what scared me more, that or the Sky Bridge. But I think what was terrific about about the Rat King segment was the building tension all the way up to it. I mean, you see the blood smear on the floor. You know this is where you have to go. I mean,
It was agony watching you take so long on that.
Yeah.
Because it just kept getting worse and worse.
But that was the thing. I'm trying to make sure I have, because that was one of my problems with The Last of Us, the original. With the original Last of Us original, it was I would go in and I wouldn't have any bullets to my name, you know. I mean, I want, so I said, you know what? When I play Last of Us 2, I'm gonna check every nook. I'm gonna check every cranny. I'm gonna make sure that I can find what I need to make sure I can make it to the next part. And that was the thing. I actually felt like I was a better player with The Last of Us Part 2. I had fewer deaths in the second than Part 2 than in Part 1. Now, as far as someone just mentioned that Rat King was probably inspired by a lot of Resi Evil stuff, which, I mean, yeah, I would agree that. But the thing is that it also, I just really, really enjoyed the entire atmosphere, the entire oeuvre of that segment, and I'm sure for people who had gone through it, people were like, "Oh, T, you're just delaying the inevitable. Just rip off the damn band-aid for Pete's sake." And I will say that I think The Last of Us Part 2, as a gamer, helped me improve where I could, instead of just staying in one location, I'm like, wait, I have this entire map that I can go through. And I was able to stay alive a lot longer, especially with the Rat King, because I was able to run back into other rooms. I was able to duck back and forth, and that's I would say overall it's made me a better gamer. So yeah, Rat King was that was a good ride.
So that's it for my questions. We are at almost exactly 2 hours. If you've got any in chat, let us know. And then otherwise, why doesn't everybody say how people can find them on the internet? And then we'll wrap this thing up.
Steve, take us out.
Yeah, you can be able to find me on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/snowball, or you can find me on Twitter at Steve Saylor, or you can be able to find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/blindgamersteve.
And as for myself, well, you're already here at twitch.tv/the T Monster. Thanks for being here tonight. I really do appreciate it. It has been an absolute pleasure hosting the Geek Wolfpack podcast, found at geekwolfpackpodcast.com. But other places you can find me is happyhourfromthetower.com, where I get together with these two guys, Nick and Brandon. We'll bring in special guests like Steve, and we will go on ahead and we will do a podcast about Destiny 2. There's also the shareddesk.com. We being me and my better half, Pip Valentine, we get together and we talk about being a writing couple and writing collaboration and writing projects. That's what we do there. And then, of course, you can find me as the T Monster, not just on Twitch, but on Instagram as well. On Twitter, it is simply T Monster. That's TEMONSTER. And finally, when I finally start blogging again, I will be getting some brand new fresh content on tmorris.com. And speaking of fresh content, there is new fresh content now on podcastingfordummies.com, because the 4th edition is about to come out. It will be out at bookstores everywhere. Feel free to pick up a copy of that, along with Twitch for Dummies and Discord for Dummies. Guys, I'm done.
Continuing the list of websites that are just your name, nickkelly.com is where I post my reviews and interviews, and you can find links to my writing up there. We are also, again, Happy Hour from the Tower, which is the Destiny podcast that we do, the Geek Wolfpack podcast we do. Also, everybody on here is all part of ADHDDND.com, which is our Dungeons and Dragons gameplay podcast. And then on Twitter, it's just at Nick_Kelly, Kelly. Brandon, how about you?
I'm basically everywhere as Thermal Wolf, all one word, 2 Fs. And on Twitter, it's the same thing, but 42 after. No, on Twitch, it's the same thing with 42 after. Whenever I decide to stream, usually whenever T is streaming. Otherwise, I live pretty much through these two numbskulls.
Correct.
With the podcasts and T stream, always hopping on there.
Very good.
Excellent. Okay, that's everything I had. T, I'm gonna hit the big red button and stop recording. If you want to keep your stream going, that's awesome. But I definitely want to thank all of you, because clearly this was a game that had a huge impact on all of you, because we said we'd probably go an hour and we went 2. And I loved your answers. I loved your context. I loved your reactions. And next time there's something this epic, let's do it again.
You bet.
Agreed.
Sounds good.
Thanks, great. And chat, I guess with that we are clear. What you just saw was the live recording of. I'll go ahead and start up the music again. That was a live recording.
If you're streaming, I'm going to the bathroom because I did not go before we started.
Oh yeah, okay, get out of there. Get out there. You finally gifted your tier 3 sub. You got if you
scroll up. It was one of the golden gear things.
Yeah, if you're gifting that, I don't see it on my list, but if you've gifted something, you just got to let me know where to gift it to and who you want to gift it to, or I can just make it a random and let Twitch decide who it goes to. So you know what? If there's somebody that I would like to gift a tier 3 sub to, it's Sharky. I had Panic a lunch with Sharky at TwitchCon, and he's good people, and I'd love to go ahead and do that. So if you want me to gift that, I will gift that to Sharky right now. So you just let me know, Panic. Does that work for you? All right then, Sharky, brace for impact. Brace, brace, brace. Hold up. Let's try that again. There we go. And boop. All right, that should do it. There we go. Gifting a tier 3 sub, because Panic saved up all of her gift, her golden gears. Sharky, you just got yourself a tier 3 sub that unlocks all of my emotes, including the very prized and very sought after Twitch Dad emote. In case you want to give someone a fun little Twitch Dad stare with the complete with the pipe. But you got that. You've got all kinds of benefits. You've got the subs only room. You've got your drop in sound effect when you come in. So yeah, there you go. Thanks a lot, Sharky. Look, Sharky's already using it. All right. So anyway, so yeah, you just watched the live recording of what are probably going to be episodes 101 and 102 of the Geek WOLFPACK podcast. It was a post-mortem / wrap up of of The Last of Us Part 2. Nick was basically asking questions to Brandon, Steve, and myself. These guys were actually waiting on me. It took me. I just finished the game October 30th, so we got on and we decided to. If people wanted a break from the election, you know, this would be the place to come. I'm afraid to look now, but I'm gonna go on ahead and just do a Google and see what Google says about the election results. Let's see.
It's kind of up in the air.
Of course it is.
People are pretty much saying, looks like that Biden's winning.
Well, it says get real-time election results, and here's what it says.
Problem is, a bunch of people voted by mail, so it'll take a while.
Yeah. But they're saying that right now, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But right now, it's still too close to call. Joe Biden, right now, they're projecting Joe Biden with 122 electoral votes versus Donald Trump with 92. That's still way too close for me. But shocker, it's leaning that Texas and Florida and Georgia are all going red. That doesn't surprise me in the least.
Well, I've been kind of keeping an eye on it. Texas has been kind of back and forth, but it's been basically almost tied pretty much the entire time.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I don't think Texas has ever had that before.
No, they never have. They've never had. But,
do we have to go start a rebellious hacker group?
But I will say this, I'm still pretty proud of the fact that Virginia has once again gone blue. The fact that Texas is even bouncing is saying a lot. But
the only thing that sucks that, as I've seen, is that McConnell got his seat again.
That didn't surprise me at all. That doesn't surprise me at all.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but I'm just like,
it
yeah,
sucks.
Man,
it
really?
Sucks. It sucks. But granted, I would prefer it if if he was the minority leader as opposed to the majority leader. I think that would be,
which looks like right now that's possible. Like it looks like at least that the House is kind of starting to flip the other way, and but the Senate is flipping the other way. So could be a good thing.
It could be. I did want to
considering
see,
how the Senate screwed over a lot of what the House was trying to do. I'd be more okay with the Senate being more Democrat than the House.
I am curious though. Virginia.
I've looked at a lot of different sites. I looked at like Politico, CNN, ABC, CBS, and they all have different results, but they are saying it's either too close to call or Biden's winning currently.
Now I'm trying to see what the they're actually saying that in Virginia. They're saying in Virginia that. Oh wait, no, they are saying that Joe Biden is leading. Wait, that doesn't make any sense.
Be.
Some sites are saying he's winning. Some say it's too close to call or whatever.
You're muted, Deb.
To what? Oh, he's muted.
It's early.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's early. Well, then right now we just my thing is that the main thing though, chat, was that I really did not want to go to bed and then wake up and find out that something that it went the opposite direction. But you know, we're in the situation. You're in the situation that you're in, and we're going to do the best we can to hope that things come around. I didn't want to necessarily bump. I don't want to necessarily bump. Have this suddenly take a political turn, but it's kind of hard to do on election day. But I will say
We
that
managed it for 2 hours.
I managed it for 2 hours. We just stayed focused on the task at hand.
Here's what's awesome: if it goes to Biden and Harris, every history teacher from now on is going to have 2016 and 2020 as the examples of what happens when you vote and what happens when you don't vote.
That's true. That is very true. That is very, very true. That is very, very true. But the thing is, I will say this is that
I have not said hi to chat at all. I've been so.
Hey, no, wait a minute. Now, can I just real quick, chat? I do want to say, can I get some GGs? I want to get some GGs and hearts in chat for Nick Kelly, who really did a nice job moderating that entire discussion. I thought Nick, you did exceptionally well. And it's funny. I would love, Brandon. I would love for you to actually go back and play the original Last of Us, just so you can get that comparison between the two, because I do feel like that even, if you were to say that the Last of Us was made 7 years ago, when I was replaying it, it was the remastered version, but it holds up really well. I mean, it really holds up well. But to give you an idea, chat, we didn't get a chance to really talk about this, but when
Thank you, chat.
What had happened was I had just finished, I believe. I had just beaten BioShock Infinite, and I said I was going to play a game, and I gave people the choice of either more Destiny, should I play The Last of Us, or should I play? I'm trying to remember what the other game was. Horizon Zero Dawn, and for every vote that I got for Horizon Zero Dawn or for more Destiny, I got like 3 votes for The Last of Us. Everybody wanted me to play The Last of Us. Everybody.
Yeah, Last of Us is a gaming masterpiece.
Yeah, It really is. It really is. And but I think Thermal, to your point, you're absolutely right. There's definitely when it comes to really exceptional games, most of the time, the PlayStation exclusives are just incredible.
They knock it out of the park, yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima was one, and Ghost of Tsushima was amazing. And Misty Rayburn, Misty is resubbing at tier 1 again for 3 months. Thank you, Misty. I do appreciate that. But yeah, with the guilty of pinning Last of Us on T. Thank you, Steampunk Rick. But no, I mean, so like some of the other PS exclusives, God of War was one. The Marvel Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man game, yeah.
Which a lot of people raved about. Actually, I'm wondering if I should look and see if that's on sale or something, because somebody said I should really play that.
It's really good.
I've heard that. It's really good.
Yeah.
You can visit my office in New York.
There we go.
It's true. I did that.
I know. There's a backpack there.
And then you've got Detroit Become Human, which I would have never picked up if Brandon hadn't told me about it. And I picked it up and I'm like, holy shit, this is good. So I love
that game.
Yeah. So with the exception of the Order 1886, there have been a lot of really good exclusives. But yeah.
Like Ghost of Tsushima, which was my first technically platinum trophy yesterday.
Yes, congratulations,
yeah.
Brandon. Congratulations.
I still have to do I have to complete the entire game on New Game Plus. But
worth it.
Yeah.
That, I mean, what I'm thinking is that's where I'm leaning towards, because I really want to do some of those legend games with you. Those look like fun.
Yeah.
Those look like fun.
Yeah.
Just so you know, chat, if you tune in to Friday nights here at this stream, you will have the delight and the joy of watching Brandon play alongside my wife in Ghost of Tsushima Legends as the Brutal Bunny Brigade, and these two are absolutely astounding to watch.
It's fun.
It's a blast. It's a blast,
Yeah.
chat. Watch for that at 7:30 here on this this channel. Honestly,
And if you like what you see there, then you need to go back into the archives and watch Pip play a shark.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
In my on my YouTube channel, actually it's the YouTube channel for Happy Hour from the Tower. But if you go there, you'll see an entire archive of Philippa's Freaky Friday, and she plays the game Maneater, which is a truly underrated game for 2020. It was the game that we all needed for this year, and Pip's like, don't erase it, T, because I may go back and just chew some people up just because we need to. All right, I'm going to wrap up the stream. Guys, it was a pleasure streaming with you all. Now I'm just going to bite my nails to the quick and just see if we can go to bed with a slightly better idea of who's going to be our leader in this country. But again, chat, thank you all very much for all the
Steve, you got a guest room just in case?
Yeah, sure.
7 guest rooms just in case.
Yeah, sure. Come on up.
For all
If
of
not,
us.
I can send you to my sister's house. Yeah,
There we go.
That'll be
There
fine.
we go. All right, I'll talk to
Easy.
you guys
Buy me
later.
a drink first.
They got more room, Brandon. That's why.
Good night, guys. All right, chat. Oh, and now my camera's off. My camera's off. What the hell happened there? Let me see it. Let me see if I can get it. Let me see if I can get another camera working here because I know you guys can hear me. Oh, that was crazy. That was crazy fun. Crazy fun. Let me go on ahead and stay with me for just 1 second, chat. Yeah, okay. You can. I just want to make sure that you all can hear me. That's good. Now, if I can just get you guys to see me. There we go. Host. And well, that's weird. It says that it's streaming, but it can't. It doesn't see me. All right. We have a lot riding on this election. I know we have a lot riding on this election, and it's scary. Yeah, I know. I'm getting there. Here, I'm going to try a different camera. Give me just 1 second to get a different camera on. Oh, that one doesn't work either? Really? Damn it. Oh, there we go. We got it. Technology, everybody. It's a thing. It's a thing, chat. When I tell you something, if you really want to test your knowledge and your patience with technology, what I say is go into streaming. Go into streaming. You know, I tell you what, go into streaming because it will test everything you know about how things work. Chat. Yeah, I know. I don't want to necessarily go to bed either. But I'm gonna, when I think there's a safe enough distance between Armageddon and and some sense of serenity. And I know that I know that also this particular election will not be decided tonight. There's going to be counts. There's going to be recounts. There's going to be the whole week of people just trying to get the ballots together. It's been scary. It's scary. It's a little intimidating. It's kind of terrifying. And you know, the only thing that we can do is we can just hope for the best outcome. I was kind of hoping that we would have a better outcome than what we had. I was really kind of hoping that there would be a little more of a landslide here. I don't know. No, he won't. And I don't think his supporters will go quietly either. For 4 years, we've had a lot of bad behavior that has been given legitimacy. And well, here's my thought about that too, Randy. My thought about that is this: as far as the behavior goes, and I feel like I have to be very careful because I know that all of the social media platforms have been cracking down on people expressing their opinions. And what I mean by expressing opinions, I don't necessarily mean positive. I mean negative or critical opinions. this is I have to be very careful about what I say, and my thoughts are this: is that the American people will speak. How tonight plays out, how this whole election plays out. We just have to really believe that things are going to be okay, and I know that it's scary, and I know that and I know it's scary, and I know that we're all kind of nervous. And you're right, ugliness has been tolerated. It has also been welcomed in this in this administration. But I really want to believe that we've got this. I think this year is going to be showing a record turnout. I know there are people that there are people that I no longer talk to because they blindly support this administration. And if 200 deaths during a pandemic, and now coming up to 300 deaths during a pandemic, isn't enough to convince people that it's that this isn't the right guy for us, and I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. Well, no, I do know what to think, and what I would think would be that the America that I grew up in has really gone away. It's really gone by the wayside. I mean, the thing is, I have a plan B. The thing is, I don't want to enact it. I really don't want to enact it because it would mean uprooting Sonny. It would mean uprooting my family. And I don't want to do that. I'm ready to do that because it's because you just know that you've done everything you can as an individual and everything you've done. And if yeah, that's also been kind of tough. It's been tough to see progress and then to see it and to see it be stepped back. And I mean, here's the thing about the South. I grew up in the South, and I grew up in the Confederacy of the capital of the Confederacy. I grew up in Richmond. And you know what? You want to hear something that might get my Virginia card revoked by some people? I never bought into the whole thing. I never bought into the whole thing about the Civil War. I never bought into that. Never bought into that hype. Daughters of the Confederacy. I remember when I first heard about them in high school, and I said, "That's a thing? That's a real thing?" And yeah, it's a real thing. I found out that it is in fact a real thing. And I'll never understand that. I will never understand that, chat. Never will. So yeah, I just hope that when the dust settles from this, we're all going to be okay. And I am hanging on to that right now. I'm hanging on to that. You were inducted for a scholarship. Oh man. And that's the thing. I mean, technically, I could be one of the sons of the Confederacy. I think, if I remember correctly. Pip did some lineage and looked into that. I get it. I get it. There's a lot of opportunities that you get with those kind of groups. But I've never understood them. I'll never forget when I first heard the term. It was up here. I was in a show. I was doing a show called Manassas: A Civil War Christmas, and I was playing a ghost, and it was fun. I had a great time. I was given as a monologue. I was given a monologue that was a letter that a guy wrote. It was it was the letter. If you want to look it up, it's the letter of Major Sullivan Ballou, and the opening of the letter starts off with my dearest Sarah, or my very dearest Sarah, and it is a gut-wrenching, beautiful letter that was written by this guy like the day before a big push for a civil war of a major battle. And Major Sullivan Ballou, he was on the Union side. It was basically a love letter to his wife, and it's just a beautiful image. Well, the as part of the show, we did this one thing. We did this special matinee. It was a matinee and a cotillion. So basically, we would do the show, and then we'd strike the chairs, and we would do a cotillion. And it was fun. It was fun to do. But it was at this cotillion that I heard for the first time ever, and I was in my late 30s, early 40s at this time, and I heard somebody refer to the American Civil War as the War of Northern Aggression. And I said to the guy, "You're kidding me, right? You're having a go with me, right?" And the guy was like, "Oh, no, that's what we call it." I said, "Where do you call it that?" And he goes, "In Virginia." And I said, "I never heard that before." And it's, I'll never understand the set that when they got news that when I heard the news that they took down the statues on Monument Avenue in my hometown of Richmond, nobody was happier than me, because those things gave me the creeps as a kid. I hated because I always looked at those statues and said, these folks basically tried to split up the Union. I don't get that. Maybe I'm looking at things in a very Pollyanna sort of way, but that was the other part of tonight. I wanted to make sure that I gave folks an alternative to watching stuff in the I almost said Olympic, of the election results. We got to stay strong. And I believe in you all. And I'm going to keep that faith. It's going to be a long week. And I got faith. So on that note, I'm going to go on ahead and pass on the love to somebody. Let's see who's out here. You've heard me talk about the game. I think. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you've heard me talk about the game. I think now you should go ahead and see it up close and personal. And you should see it with this streamer, because she's a lot of fun to watch. You should see it with this. Her name is Waterloo. She's the only Waterloo, and I may have to tweak the night raid, because I think I used. Did I? No, I'm good. Okay, so take that message, and I want you to spam that in her chat when we go in here. Let's just see here. But this is the only Waterloo, and she is doing Phasmophobia. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me tonight. I hope you all enjoyed the discussion. You'll be hearing that soon on the Geek Wolfpack podcast. I will let you know when it goes live. Thank you, everyone, for the tips, bits, subs, hosts, and auto hosts. And thank you for being here tonight and enjoying the discussion. It was a blast to bring this to you. And as far as tonight goes, stay strong. Stay strong, everybody. I love you. Take care of yourselves. Peace.